I've considered doing a top 10 fighters of all time video. Maybe I will in the future, but my standards are kind of different than everyone else's. Everyone else seems to focus on resume and title wins. I focus more on ability. On top of that, in my opinion, if you tested positive for PEDs, you should be eliminated from the GOAT discussion. Period. Luckily, for a couple of guys we'll get to later, this is my top 10 favorite fighters of all time. So honorable mentions, Wonderboy, Frank Mir, Oliveira, Aldo, Kane, other guys I can't think of right now, and the pre-scumbag Conor McGregor. If you'd like a bonus number 11, it's the Milwaukee Strangler himself, Ben Askren. Not the most exciting fighter of all time, but there's two main reasons I love him. A, he's hilarious, and B, this man was an undefeated phenom for over a decade, a multi-organizational champion, and did it with the biggest dad bod in welterweight history. Absolutely epic. Good old Bisping, a real blood and guts fighter. If there was ever a guy I wish got that BMF title that never got a chance for it, it's definitely the Count. If you were gonna beat Mike, you were gonna have to pry it from his cold, dead fingers. What I always found interesting about Bisping's fight style is that he had no elite traits. I mean, you can argue cardio, sure, but things like punching power, hand speed, strength, the real, intangibles, he definitely would not get a perfect score. Mike wasn't some elite level talent. He was just a dude that loved to fight and wanted it more than you. These fucking cheated the steroid motherfuckers cheated him, but they got steroids in the motherfucking Seriously, I love Hunto, or as he's been referred to, the king of the walkaway KO.
Mark Hunt is the king of the walkaway KO. And in case you forgot, I'm the king, I'm the king, I'm the king, I'm the king. Nice uppercut. Look at that. Wow. Boy, he knew when he landed that, he just walked away.
I have never to this day seen a guy make knockouts look cooler than Mark Hunt. He straight up gives people the, he's not getting up. And not many guys can do it like him. Something he also doesn't get enough credit for is his leg kicks. He's got big, tree trunk-like legs, and it doesn't even seem like he gives a shit if you check them. I love dudes that are down for a good scrap, as you'll see with the rest of this list. But there are few men that embody the word fighter like Mark Hunt. It's not just what he does, but it's who he is. And if you know anything about Mark's tough upbringing and his reasons for the walkaway and not wailing on his downed opponents, you probably want the guy to succeed just like I do. CTE Jesus himself. I love Justin Gaethje, both versions. I can't think of a better description of Gaethje's early fight style than try hard. That's not a jab or anything. Justin has literally talked about the moment that he changed his fight style after finally heeding his head coach Trevor Whitman's advice.
Through the output, my output has dropped about 85%. My coach told me forever, try a little bit less and you will find more success. And it's like golf. It's like the harder you try, the worse you do. It doesn't make sense to me because my whole life in wrestling was the harder you work, the better you did.
Current Gaethje is a technical assassin, chipping away at your legs, leaving you a sitting target for one of the hardest punchers in lightweight history. There's also a few men that can brag they have never in their entire career had a boring fight, and Justin is a name on that short list. The most interesting fighter in the UFC. The rigorous training and routine of the typical athlete is enough to break a great many people. And then you see Jiri punching trees or, balancing on a sword like Yoshimitsu from Tekken. I love this guy. Another man it's virtually impossible to have a boring fight with. Most people tend to fight with a, quote, standard MMA style nowadays, so seeing Jiri throw those bolo-ass uppercuts and putting his hands in ready position mid-fight is just so fascinating to me. Whether it's his insane training, his loony fight style, or his personality, this guy became a favorite of mine pretty quickly. The Fedor of the UFC, the George Foreman of MMA. I can keep going. I miss watching this dude fight, a real example of a fighter as well as an entertainer. Getting tackled by DC must have been like getting hit by a Ford Escort. I especially enjoyed the back half of his career after he started weaponizing pace. You could see the Cain Velasquez influence all over his career. Training with the greatest heavyweight of all time has perks, it turns out. The second DC got solid stand-up was the moment the rest of the division was boned. If I had to sum Daniel Cormier up, I'd say he's not locked in the cage with you, you're locked in the cage with him. Is it a stretch to call Tony the most interesting fighter of all time? As far as I'm concerned, Justin Gaethje retired Tony Ferguson, and he never fought again. Yes, I'm massively coping. Stop mentioning it. Prime Tony was a phenom, terrifying to watch, so being locked in the cage with him must have been a whole different experience. He was like the final boss of the lightweight division, title or not, all the way down to getting a second health bar once he got hurt. A rare example of a man getting better with his own blood on him. Nobody weaponized pace like Tony Ferguson, and I kinda doubt anyone ever will again. Guy would sprint for 25 minutes straight and never slowed down for a second, with expertise in all 8 limbs for maximum damage. He's also a great example at being yourself in the cage. There's not a thing about Tony that isn't completely his own. And if there's a single thing Tony's proven over the last 15 years, is that there isn't a single man on this earth, not even David Goggins' week of hell, that can make him quit. One of one. I watched Khabib return against Daryl Horcher almost 10 years ago, absolutely smash him to pieces, and thought, nobody's ever gonna beat this dude, just give him the belt already. Him turning into an all-time great was not surprising to me at all, with grappling that's as close to perfect as you'll probably ever get. He's also the greatest ground and pound artist in the history of the sport. One of the only guys to make ground and pound both exciting to watch and absolutely horrifying. Khabib fights had that feel of watching a regular man get locked in the cage with a bear. The Live Leak logo would seem fitting with some of his fights. People tend to remember his sound bites, but in his heyday, I enjoyed Chael's style of wrestling. Sit and guard, put fist to face, never stop. Simple and effective. Landed 289 strikes on Anderson Silva in one of my favorite fights of all time. One of the only time periods I've ever consistently tuned into Bellator was watching Chael's final run towards the title. Above all though, I always respected that Chael was a real example of anyone, anywhere, anytime. He never picked fights or looked for easy stylistic matchups. He said it simply, find the best guy in the room and try to find a way to beat him. BMF shit. Dom probably has the most interesting fight style of all time. Muhammad Ali mixed with Willie Pep, mixed with Eric Del Fierro being a quiet genius, results in the greatest bantamweight of all time. This might sound weird, but I never even minded the 25-minute fights from Cruz. There are fighters that weaponized pace, Dom weaponized the clock. There are fighters that weaponize their offense. Dom weaponized the planes he was fighting you on, so you couldn't use your offense. Cruz is a real example of a fighting historian, a guy who oftentimes beat you with his mind way more than his physical skill set. I gotta be honest, I was devastated when Islam beat Dustin. That fight really felt like the culmination of Dustin's life's work. I predicted Islam to win like we all did, but goddamn, I have not wanted a guy to win a fight that bad since DC Jones 2. Moving past Dustin just being a good example for the sport, a genuinely good dude behind the scenes, he was a heart, toughness, blood and guts fighter with his identity largely being known as a fighter. He'll always fight until he cannot fight anymore. Prime example of a guy you need to separate from consciousness to beat. Also, is there a fighter with a better barn burner ratio than El Diamante? Maybe Justin. It's going to be tough to watch Dustin walk away, especially seemingly without getting that undisputed title. But I'll be watching every second until then, on the edge of my seat, knowing that once Dustin steps in the cage, it's all carnage from there on.